Hey, good evening. Welcome to True Great Crime. I am your host, Mama Gritty. Sorry I'm a little bit late. I'm still waiting on Christine. I think she's running a little bit behind. Welcome in to everybody coming in tonight. I see that there are a lot of folks in here. Shout out to Mar R, Jenny 8675309, Blue Light Recovery, Woman Doing Chaos, Free Ricky Bay. Let's see who else we got in here. Donnie Pitbull, thank you for coming. Low Light Recovery, Catastrophe, Emerald Wonderland, Michelle N, Spectrum of Thoughts, welcome in. KO, hey, welcome in, y'all. Big JD, 420, what's up? How y'all been? Man, it's been a hot minute since we've all kind of been here to do our little chit chat, right? So, oh my goodness. Hopefully what I would like for us to do tonight, what Christine and I would like to kind of do is I've kind of been working going back, and I just want to kind of talk about this stuff from the beginning. You know what I mean? Because there's so many questions, there's so many things going on, there's so many moving parts, there's so many moving people. This is just There are a couple of things that I can you two stop that, please? Aurora, be nice to your brother. There are a couple of things that I did come across that I thought were really interesting. I just learned recently that so everybody's this whole Anthony Shots and Jerry Jerry Anthony Klein thing is a dead deal when it comes to connections. So the other night I learned that I can't guarantee that they knew each other, right? But I learned that Brad Holder lived in Peru, Indiana. Gotta find the page. I've got the page because it was very, very freaking interesting. Because I learned something else too. Pretty rough. Yeah. Okay, where are you? Okay, so he lived in Peru from 1998 until 2000. I do have an address somewhere in my notes. Oh, here it is. The address was 742 South County Road, 875 East, Peru, Indiana. And he lived there from June 13th, 1997 to June 14th of 2000. Really weird, right? I don't know. I thought that was interesting. And that doesn't necessarily say that Holder and Klein, or the Kleins, plural, had necessarily come into contact with one another, but it's really interesting because I think about the rumors out there that says Holder Klein, what's his face? I can't think of the name. Holder Klein Logan, that they were all connected. Okay. So I also learned something else too. There's some alias stuff going on. Okay. So this Holder was born in 1972. Okay, so January 7th, 1972, KO. So he uses an alias by the name of Levi W. Holder. And what's interesting is, there's like a couple of different aliases. You have like Bradley Wayne Holder, Bradley Levi Holder. And you have, obviously, he has like a son and all that other jazz. But anyway, the point of it is that I thought it was very interesting that the crossover that Holder resided in Peru between those, like that time period. I just found it to be interesting. Just saying. Doesn't necessarily have to mean whatever. Okay. Low light recovery. Watched Westfall answer question about knowledge of a CSAM brain and his body language. It didn't fit his answer. But that's my vibe. I'm clearly no expert, right? I'm gonna leave that to the experts. But yeah, there's some things that make it go, right? So I'm just saying, like, it is a possibility, like residing in the same town, maybe, simultaneously throughout the same time. I'm not saying they absolutely know each other, but it could be a possibility, right? Oh my goodness. Give me a second, y'all. I'm gonna call Christine and see what's going on. Oh, there she is. Christine.
Hey, sorry I'm late.
We've been waiting on you. How are you?
Good, how are you?
Fan-freaking-tastic.
Time change. This one was me, so I thought I had another hour.
Oh, did the time change?
No, there's an hour between me and you, and I forgot.
Oh, yeah. I forgot we are an hour apart in time.
We are, but it's okay. I'm fine. I'm fine.
Okay.
This is fine.
Okay. Awesome
My
sauce.
wife was watching you in the living room, and she's like, "Hey, aren't you going on True Grit?" I was like, "Yeah, in about an hour." And she's like, "No, no, right now." And I was like, "Oh shit." Sorry. My fault.
Oh, it's okay. No worries. We're definitely patient. Tell wife I said, well, hi, wifey. I'm here. Hi, welcome. Thank you for coming. Thank you for listening. So yeah, I was just talking about the Brad Holder thing, right? Residing in Peru, Indiana between 1998 and 2000, right?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, interesting.
I
Wow.
forgot to mention, right? So I don't know when we don't know when he purchased this vehicle, right? But he owned a 2015 Ford Focus SE. We
Isn't
don't
that
know if he owned
interesting?
it like before, but he did register it with the BMV on December 28th, 2018, and the registration ran out on June 7th, 2019.
Did.
But we don't know when he purchased that either. So
Mm,
interesting, right?
very interesting.
Interesting, very interesting.
Yeah.
So I was telling everybody kind of tonight, like I wanted to try to take it back to the beginning because today, unfortunately, is another year without the girls. It is February 13th. Um, so I really kind of like was wondering, like, if by what you've learned, if you can share, kind of like how this whole entire day started to play out, what we know, what we kind of don't know. Can we do that?
We can. We can
All
actually.
right. Okay.
So
So I'll let you take it away.
so I think that I think it'll be easiest if we go by witness accounts. I think that's probably going to be the easiest to
Okay.
have a good go at this, right?
Absolutely.
So,
I think witness accounts are important. Yes, let's do it.
so the juveniles, you know me. Um, let me do my disclaimer first because I have to do this every time that I speak. So, I am not an attorney. I don't work for attorneys at this point. I am not under contract to work this case at all. So I am just a woman um, doing the same thing as everybody else at this point. At one point, I, I was an investigator on this case, but I am not now. So we have minors involved in this situation, and that makes the laws when you're dealing with minors are a little bit tricky, right? So I have a pretty decent understanding of what I can and can't say. And then I have moral obligations. And so I'm never going to throw somebody in the spotlight that does not belong there, right? So, if you're a meth cooking cartel junkie, you kind of deserve the spotlight a little bit. But if you're just a 12-year-old that was taking a walk in the woods with your babysitter, we are not going to throw you under the bus. And the law says that what if you're a minor at the time, we still treat you like a minor even now. And so that's how we're going to handle this. So we'll start with the big overall picture. Um, from my understanding, nobody was inside the house of the Germans or none of us were inside the house of the Germans that day. So we have to rely on, what the family says happened, what the reports say happened, and um, the girls wanted to go to the bridge that day. So their sister Kelsey, or the Libby's sister Kelsey, um, said that she would take them to the bridge. From my understanding, one of the moms did not like them going to the bridge, but they also didn't say that they couldn't go on that date. So um, Kelsey takes the girls to the bridge and drops them off. On the way to the bridge, the girls were, they were laughing, they were joking, they were doing the things that girls do. They were taking some photos and some videos. We have actual photo and video evidence that the girls were in that car and they were moving down the road on that day with a camera, right? So we have rock solid proof um, that they were on their way to that bridge. So there's no doubt about that. Kelsey drops them off, and then what happened after that is a little bit of a mystery. So as far as Kelsey goes, we know that Kelsey worked at the local Dairy Queen. She was supposed to work that day. Um, she she had gone to her boyfriend's house. She washed his truck that day. Um, there are witnesses that saw that happen. There are Kelsey's phone was active that day, so we have metadata that proves where she was, what she was doing. Um, Not necessarily what she was doing, but how she was moving around. That's your cell phones. Cell phones really give a good impression somebody's day-to-day life. And so we have that for Kelsey. Um, she watched a movie at her boyfriend's house. She went to work for a hot minute, and then she came home, and she made an appearance out at the bridge at some point. And then I do believe she returned home for a little bit before she ultimately ended up at the police station. She did everything that was in her power to help to locate her sister. She's messaged some folks to try to figure out where she was. So that's all the things around the bridge that were happening. Kelsey's dad was supposed to pick the girls up, right? So Kelsey dropped them off, and then Derek was supposed to pick them up. When Derek arrived at the bridge, he I don't recall exactly whether he texted or he called the girls or Libby. When I say the girls, I mean Libby's phone, because Abby did not have a phone that day. He called the girls to find out where they were and why they weren't ready for him, and got no answer. So um, I believe next he called Becky. Um, his his activity on that day, though, there's a mention of a trip that he made that day. He saw a vehicle at Wilson Bridge. Hold on a minute, I'm grabbing my notes. You'll hear shuffling paper here for just a second. I keep far too much information in my brain to be able to instantly recall everybody's stories, because they change over time. You get, and that's normal, but you get bits and pieces every time somebody talks about their story. They give you a little bit more than what you knew before, right? So, and Derek's no exception. So he had seen at some point that day a vehicle. Nope, I'm not finding it. Hold on just a second. Gertie, do you have notes on that car that I talked about? Oh, I found it.
Oh, I was about to say, yeah, I do. I just have to find the page.
So there's a Subaru, and that's what Derek was driving. He was driving a white Subaru wagon. He saw he saw he saw the older guy that was taking photos, but he saw a white, or actually cream colored SUV that he saw two people get into. And in another one of these narratives, he mentioned seeing someone at Wilson Bridge. Well, you can't see Wilson Bridge from the High Bridge parking lot. You just can't. So
No, there's no
what
way you can see Freedom Bridge from there or Wilson from
Wilson
Freedom
Bridge?
parking lot.
So he saw this white SUV at 311. Um, but he also says that he saw the scooter arrive. Everybody's heard about this scooter, right? So I'm not saying anything new. But I I I think it's interesting that he saw the scooter arrive at High Bridge at the same time that he mentioned seeing an SUV arrive at Wilson Bridge. So I can't help but wonder if maybe he got to one bridge and they weren't there, and then maybe he assumed that they were at the other bridge because they're not very far apart. So I'm wondering if he didn't drive from one bridge to another and kind of come back. So that's Derek's. That's kind of really what we've got on Derek. Like he talks about seeing the older guy taking pictures. Everybody knows that's David McGain. Um, so he identified that car. Other people identified Derek's car. So we see a trend that they're using. It was pretty brilliant, actually. They used vehicles to lock these people's stories in. So as they were talking to witnesses, they were asking them what they saw in the parking lot. So it doesn't necessarily nail down what they were doing out there or how they were moving around at the bridge, but it does help to nail down what time. Because if a car that the law enforcement knows to be there wasn't there when somebody else was coming or going, well, then you know somebody's got their time off a little bit. And we do hear a mention of that. We caught one of those. Um, so then we have, I'm gonna skip to the I'm gonna skip through some of these and we'll go back to them. There's another woman whose name has never been seen around the Delphi community. And for that reason, I'm not going to mention her. She's a local. She's very, very local to the bridge, but
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to just not mention her name. So
Yeah.
she saw the white passenger car with the paper plate. So that rumor of this car with the paper plate, we got it. It was seen by multiple people. It really was there. Um, she admitted to seeing this car. She also saw a dark colored small car parked in the gravel facing the gate to the entrance. Now, the time that she gave is at 3 p.m. So I know you guys all like detail. So I'm going to tell you as much detail as I have so that you can play with this and get yourself a good timeline, um, as good as you can. Um, so then we have a gentleman whose name has also never been mentioned around YouTube. Now, he reported being shown a photo of a vehicle. Now, I've seen this photo floating around. And you're all going to be like, oh. So, this vehicle shows a person dressed in brown pants a dark jacket, and a hat, leaning into the trunk of a Dodge Dart, a white Dodge Dart. So the photos bothered this guy because he remembered that on his way into Delphi on that Hoosier Heartland Highway at around 5:30ish, that car was parked on the hill at the side of Freedom Bridge. Now he says that he saw a late model, possibly a Chrysler 200, that looked pretty similar to the car in this photo. The photo had come from somebody's blog. According to law enforcement, this blog had become pretty prominent for having a mix of reliable and unreliable information. They did run this plate and they did get a return on it, and ruled out the person that owned that car. So I found that interesting because there were so many versions of this white Dodge Dart story. So when I got to see it, like the real story, I was like, oh, well, that's boring. And a lot of these are like that. Like they kind of grow and morph into something interesting when they're really
Veronica says there are 2 white Dodge Darts, paper plates.
interesting.
Came from the mom writing it down, drugs. Hold on, let me scroll up here because there's a couple of good comments that I saw, but I didn't want to interrupt you.
No, you're good. So there's 2 of them, huh? Are
Yes,
there
ma'am.
photos of 2 of them?
I'm not sure. Miss Veronica would have to answer that in the chat, from my understanding. So let me go down here. It's interesting to think how coincidental that they were interacting with A shots and going to meet him, but got killed by a completely different predator, right? It's messed up to think about.
It is interesting.
Do you think he wears his sunglasses to bed? I don't know what that is. Okay.
Okay, that was funny.
I just caught that, yeah. So Low Light Recovery had said before you came in. So he said, watch Westfall answer questions about knowledge of a CSAM ring, and his body language didn't fit his answer. But that's my vibe. I'm clearly no expert.
Oh, but you are an expert, Mr. Lowlight. I'm picking up what you're putting down, and I've noticed.
Big JD, right? Big JD says Steve Rogers is another alias for Holder. Apparently, that's the dude who is or played Captain America. Oh my God, that's why that email makes sense now. Thank you, Big JD. Thank you. All right.
You're the best, Big JD.
You're the best,
I love
baby.
you.
Thank you. Jenny 8675309. I love saying that. Said Low Light Recovery that I think Patrick has turned over a new leaf. Laugh emoji.
I'm hoping so.
Bell Mayhem says, I went down a rabbit hole on some of those names from the NM filing, the Nick McLeland filing. Yeah.
That's a good idea.
Yes.
I recommend that.
Yes. Yeah, I've started a little bit. I'm going through some. Let's see. I'm trying to register Brazil, but it won't let me. Like, I have 2 different bank accounts. It's not accepting either of my bank accounts. I don't understand that, but I'm gonna figure something out. Jenny867530 said, but do you play an attorney on TV?
No,
Oh,
that'll
I
get
love
me
it.
sued. I am really, really careful. Like I feel silly giving this disclaimer, but people, you know,
Um,
imaginations run us over in this case. And so I I have to make it clear to everybody that like I'm not a lawyer. I don't tell lawyers what to do. I don't criticize lawyers. Like that's all not. I'm the peon. so
right.
so there's that.
Okay, so this is kind of like when you started talking low light. Recovery said truth. Woman said integrity. Catastrophe said only minors exempt from court filings if they are witness or victims of sex crimes per Indiana law, and that is living minors. Jenny was chatting to KO. Aaron says, wrong, Christine. We don't have to take anyone's word for anything. Our duty is to doubt until presented with sufficient evidence.
Sure. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, yeah, that's fair. I mean, I'm the only one that's seen it though. But
Yeah. Big JD sent me something on Discord of Kelsey talking about who she knew was at the bridge that day that I have never heard before. Oh, Big JD, thank you. I love it when you send me good stuff.
mm-hmm.
Free Ricky said she said we took them. Was that we meaning KG and Bree? That's a good question.
Mm, you know, that reminds me of something. Prof had a photo. You know, the photo of Abby on the bridge.
Yeah.
The one that's just the Snapchat photo.
The one that the friend saw and took a screenshot of.
Yes, that one. Now,
Mhm.
it was always my understanding that that photo could have been taken with the Snapchat app,
Yeah.
bypassing her phone's camera option, right? And so that
Yeah.
could be why the phone wasn't contained on her phone. Well,
But
then in an interview, Jen
wouldn't it
said,
wouldn't it be in the Snapchat cache though?
well, that's what I was getting to. So
Oh, okay. Sorry.
in one of her TV interviews, Jen said, sorry, Jennifer OJ
Mm-hmm.
said that that photo was not in her Snapchat cache. Well, that's the
Ooh,
first time I've heard that.
yes.
So,
It's very interesting. So that photo was not in the Snapchat cache, not in the phone.
right. If
And
if I'm
wow.
understanding what she said correctly,
Right.
and if she didn't somehow misspeak, right? Because we all are human and make errors. But Jen
Correct.
is pretty dang precise.
Yes,
So
ma'am.
I tend to trust what she said, right? So
Correct.
Prof had a photo that was really, really similar, like almost identical, maybe identical,
Yep.
and said, could this be another one of the minors? One of Kelsey's friend or one of Abby's friends,
Right.
one of her friends. And now I wonder, now I wonder.
You're wondering real hard because I am too.
Right. It wasn't until I saw him post that picture that I was like, oh, could that be her? I don't I don't know. So now I was real sure. Even after trial, this is the life of a PI. You have to stay open-minded. I was real sure that that pic of her on the bridge came from her phone. Or somebody posted it from her account on their phone. But now I'm wondering if it wasn't a photo of one of her friends that just happened to be signed into her Snapchat on their phones. Because kids do that, right?
Oh, I didn't even think about that. I didn't think about her logging into other friends' phones, but that's a
Yeah.
really good point.
Well, because when you get grounded and your mama takes your phone away, what do? You sign into somebody else's.
Right.
At least
You
that's
go
what
to
my
your
kid
brother,
did.
your sister, your friend. What? Yeah, I got you.
That's what my kid did. So I don't know. Now I'm confused, right? Hmm. Okay, so anyway.
Okay, so Big JD 420, okay, says, I just watched an interview of her, and I think she's talking about Kelsey because it's like a continuation from above. I just watched an interview of her saying she went back to her boyfriend's house and hung out with his sister. That was the first time I had heard that as well.
Hmm.
Okay. And you and I have had this conversation about the
Yep.
change of the narrative
Yeah, we sure have.
because I've said it like
Yeah.
numerous times over. Not
Yep.
trying to bash nobody, nothing
Right.
like that. I get it. Like she's a teenage girl
Right.
over time. She did more of like a spokesperson type thing for a position that maybe she should not have been thrown in at that given point in time.
Yeah, she was a child.
But right, but there's also, and no disrespect, but there are things that I have seen and heard that leave me in question and bewilderment. And I would love nothing more to get to the bottom of it and feel like I am secure in that decision of like, I'm good, everything's good there. You know what I
Mm,
mean? That's just my personal opinion on it. I know that you and I may differ on that, but
right.
that's where I
Yeah.
stand at this given point in time. Because
Yeah.
I'm not convinced that that's not something of a possibility, in my opinion. Just saying.
I
Just,
mean, her whereabouts are known though. Like she physically
I
couldn't
get
be.
it, but it just, I'm gonna move on. I'm gonna move on.
So
Okay. So,
then we've got
um,
the neighbor.
there's a couple more. Hold on. There's a
Okay.
couple more that you have to hear. So,
Okay.
um, KO said, I was told Bree was at the trails at 11, and then she met Kelsey for lunch after Kelsey dropped off the girls, and then Kelsey went to wash her boyfriend's truck. So the vehicle that you had mentioned, the blue vehicle, woman is asking for confirmation. Is that Dan McCain?
Um, Dan McCain was there. I know what time he got there and what kind of time he left. I don't recall.
Because she said Dan or Dave. Both of them, both Dan and Dave were there. It just, there's a like a timeline to it of in the places that they were. You know what I mean? In the area. That's all.
Dave
Um,
McCain, I know, was there, and um, I have a, I have documented narrative of him being there, but
I
I
could have
didn't pay
swore
attention.
Dan was said to be there too, but
Yeah, Dan was said
if
to.
not, then if I misspeak, then I'm sorry. But you're the expert. I'll let you take it.
He may have been, but I didn't see one for him that I pulled. Um, but I tend to run those brothers together in my brain. So, but I don't have a narrative for him. But I know what's said publicly. Publicly, he's all kinds of there that day. But I don't know which car was his. I didn't write it down. Um,
Okay, I'm gonna let you keep going forward or whatever, and then yeah. So anybody coming in salty, welcome in. Thank you guys for coming and listening. Sorry, Christine.
No, you're fine.
Go ahead, hon.
Okay, so we may hear mention of that car further on because the cars keep coming up. So Daniel Pearson, right? We know he was there that day. That shouldn't be real surprising to anybody. Now he was there with Shelby. There were two Shelbys at the bridge that day, right? So we're going to talk about Shelby H. That's who went with Daniel Pearson. So Shelby drives the Chevy Impala with the paper plate. So now we got a name for that car. They got there. They got to the bridge, the actual bridge, between 3:20 and 3:30. That's not when they parked. That's not when they, arrived in the area. That's when they actually got to the bridge itself. Two cars were already there. A white Subaru all-wheel drive wagon. And we know who that is, right? And then a dark colored car. They saw a guy that was over 55, peppered hair and beard, solid black painter's or golfer's hat, blue jeans, tan and cream lumberjack style shirt with black and gray mixed in. Now we all call him flannel shirt guy. He had an orange disposable camera and he appeared to have taken a photo of Daniel and Shelby H. Also there was a guy that was walking a dog. Officers showed him a picture of David McCain, and he said, yep, that's the guy taking photos. So now we know that Daniel and Shelby H were there at the same time that Dave McCain was there. And that Dave McCain was there taking photos. So then we go to Shelby H's interview. So Shelby, her dad, called her at 2:35, right when they got to the trail. So that's how she knows what time she got there. So she got there at 2:35. So at 2:53, she gets another call. At 3:20, Daniel gets another call. But he didn't notice that one until 3:20. And then he sat down at the first platform of the bridge and replied to that call at 3:33. Texted back and forth till 3:35. And then they left about 10 minutes later. And they left the parking lot somewhere between 3:50 and 4 o'clock. So they were shown photos of cars that had traveled down 300, but none of the cars matched the white Subaru that they saw parked at the trailhead when they arrived and when they left. Now we know that white Subaru is Derek German. So then Shelby H was interviewed again. Looks like this one was before the one I just read. So in the first one, she says she was with her boyfriend on the 13th. They got to the bridge at around 2:30. They parked near the entrance. She saw a light colored long vehicle. We know that's Derek's car. She saw an older white guy taking pictures towards them, 80 to 90 years old, white hair. We know that's McCain. They also saw two of their friends. Um, Cheyenne Ingalls, she testified in court, so you're all familiar with her, and Shelby D.
Okay. And they're asking if you have times, if you could share the times, please. And somebody was asking if anything was seen on the trail cam, if anything showed at the trail cams.
So the trail cams that are on the evidence list that just came out are trail cams that were placed at the scene after the homicides. So there were trail cams at the smaller crime scene where the girls were found. And then there were pole cameras at the trail entrance and at the Mears Gate. So those were all put up after the murders. The trail cams that were there already, I can't talk about because they weren't discussed in court. Was that the only one?
Somebody wants to know, do we know if Ron Logan took a polygraph?
I don't recall. Not right off the top of my head. So when people took polygraphs, my discovery, the copy that I had, I didn't actually get like a printout or a report of their polygraph. So what I got is what the officers would mention in their interview narrative. So when they would talk about their interview with the suspect, and then they would say, this person was polygraphed. This is how they did. They like, for example, I was looking at one yesterday, and it said that they failed the polygraph overall, but they were truthful on high stress questions. So what that means is that overall they were not truthful, but when it came to like the real important questions, like did you kill the girls or whatever, those questions they answered truthfully on. So usually that just means that they're lying to cover up whatever drug use or prostitution or whatever. Like they're lying for some other reason. And the polygraphs, you can't lie on a polygraph and get away with it. They will catch you every time. But I don't recall seeing a mention of a polygraph for him. But there may have been one. Like just because I don't see things doesn't mean they didn't exist.
Right. Mother Dragon says that she's a little behind, but I always wondered if they booted the FBI because Kelsey said that they were harassing her.
Yeah, no, that ain't it. Nope.
Can you share the reason why the FBI were asked to step away?
So it became fairly obvious at some point as we were reading through the discovery material. It became quite obvious that there were different philosophies in how things should be done, how people should be, um, not really how people should be treated, but what kind of person they were looking for, how leads should be exhausted, how people should be cleared, what kind of killer they were looking for. Like they were very clear. Um, the things that Todd Click mentioned in his report, you could see that kind of friction very clearly. Um, you know, people would be cleared and the reports would say who cleared them. Like it would say that they were cleared by the county sheriff, or they were cleared by ISB, or they were cleared by the FBI. And sometimes the FBI would ask that a person that had already been cleared be re-cleared because it wasn't as thorough as they would have liked. So there was some of that happening. Um, the BAU also came up with a profile, um, and that profile was different than the type of individual that the locals were looking at. There was a disconnect there. You could kind of see it. Like it was pretty plain. It was pretty easy to see. The FBI appeared to believe that this was not a crime of a sexual nature. That's how it looked to me, and they pretty much said as much. Um, you know, and the locals, because she was found naked, they um, they continued to beat that drum.
Okay. Tammy would like to know, what about the trail cam that was discussed in court? What way was it facing and what did it capture?
So there, I don't recall them discussing the trail cam in court. I may have been absent that day. So there were a couple of trail cams that were there that were in the area. One was on the trail itself, and then there were some that were not by the trail. They were, um, there was tree stands and stuff up there. Obviously, people had been out there hunting. Um, I
Were
don't.
they were they in working order? I remember
Uh,
hearing a rumor at some point that there was some issues with trail cams working order because shortly after this incident took place, I very much remember and actually still have the clipping of when they were talking about they wanted to reinforce um, safety and all of those measures to kind of help citizens feel secure and going
yeah.
back to returning to the bridge. So they were talking about they had, we're going to get this funding and put this work in to make it whatever. So do we know for a fact that the trail cams were functioning at all, by the way?
So the trail cams that they put up that private citizens put up, trail cams before the homicides. Some were working, some were not. Um, the trail cams that were put up after the homicides were put up by the FBI, and those were working. Those photos I have seen because there were folks traipsing around the crime scene that did not belong there. Um, so my understanding is that the photos that came from any of the trail cams that were already out there, nothing evidentiary would have come from any of them. So nothing useful. And I know that some of them weren't working. And then one of the homeowners out there had some trouble with um, people messing with their trail cams. So where they had previously had trail cams up, they had taken them down not long before the murders, probably, a month or so before the homicides happened. Which, hindsight being what it is, it kind of sucks because it probably would have been helpful, but they just weren't there. So I know from reading the narratives of the witnesses that people were sent to retrieve those trail cams right away. Like they were retrieved right away. So I know that there were trail cams out there.
Okay, so Cleveland Rock says killers often return to the scene.
They do.
Catastrophe.
So do YouTubers for some weird ass reason. Like
Yes, YouTubers.
uh, there were all kinds of
Multiple.
people out there that just did not belong out there. So the hope
Yeah.
was when they put those cameras up that they would find the killers returning to the scene. And and they found instead a psychic and her child. They found a YouTuber. Just they it was a bunch of people other than the killers. Unfortunately, like
Oh yeah, that psychic thing was wild.
hmm
Can we
I
share what they had like talked about, like the psychic and the kid and all that stuff? Because what you
so
told Roy, that was
apparently
freaking wild.
yeah, so apparently this psychic and her child, adult child, I think that's the feeling that I got, had gone out to the crime scene to try to do the psychic things. Um, and they picked up a bloody leaf from the crime scene and took that home with them so that they could do whatever psychic things that you do with the blood of murdered children. And when law enforcement came knocking on their door to want to discuss what they were doing in the middle of the crime scene, they explained that, she's a psychic. And so we were just out there trying to do psychic stuff. And the cop said, okay, and left, leaving behind the bloody leaf that they had stolen from the crime scene.
Now, ain't that a kick in the head? They left the bloody leaf behind.
Yeah.
Mm,
Yeah.
I can't even. I really have to shake my head with all kinds of things that we've talked about in this case. I just gotta say, I'm shaking my head.
I'm pretty sensitive to victims and their families just because of my work history. I can't I can't speak for the parents of these girls. Oh, but I
No.
can't imagine that they would. think that
I would
that's
be
a
hot.
good thing to be done. Like,
If I heard some of these things and that was my child or my children, I would be hot.
Yeah, I can't imagine that they would find that respectful.
I wouldn't imagine so either, but yeah, that's not okay.
Yeah, that was interesting. That was interesting to see. Mm-hmm.
So, Low Light Recovery says with the manipulation of cell phones I have seen used against me, spoofing the KK ring, phones, or account to draw the girls is totally within an organized criminal's wheelhouse. Just thinking out loud.
Yeah, I mean, you're not wrong though.
Yeah, no.
You're not wrong. I mean, it's totally something they could probably pull off.
Right?
And it sounds like it's something that they investigated as being something he could probably pull off. Like, they
Right?
dug into him hard, hard.
Right?
Like, and they didn't just dig into him, they dug into him and his whole family. His whole family, his friends, they made a real hard go at him.
Mm-hmm.
Because not only because of the CSAM, but because of this. Like, they took a real hard look at him. Um, you know, they came to the decision they came to, but he is definitely a monster.
Right? Sees Through says, wouldn't Rick have seen all these people on the trails and them see him?
Well, so that's what's interesting, sees through. The only way that Rick would have seen all these people and that they would have seen him is if he was there when the state says he was there. Now, Rick, in court, they played his interviews. Now, he said something interesting that the state wanted to ignore and did ignore pretty much. Now, he said he was there between 1:30 and 3. What he didn't say is that he was there from 1:30 to 3. So when he gave his next interview, him saying that he was there from like noon to 1:30 or something earlier in the day, that really isn't any different than the first thing he said. And
Does
they,
he talk about where he parks at all during that interview?
yeah,
In the first interview?
I think so. I mean, he admits that he parked in the CPS lot.
Okay.
So so in order for him to see all those people aren't getting there until 2:30. So if he left at 1:30, he they would have never seen him and he would have never seen them. So it only makes sense for him to have seen them and them to have seen him if you believe the state's timeline. That's why I believe that it's so important to hear all of the timelines because you only heard some of them in court.
Right. And I think that's why I wanted to go through this. You know what I mean? I thought it was important that we go through this tonight so that we can kind of start to lay out some what you've seen along the way and then everybody can kind of like work out, you know what I mean? Because
Yeah,
there's a lot to process
it
and,
is
you know,
progress.
lay out for everybody.
Yeah, it's 2
But
years worth of work.
right. But it also, I think, leaves for some very interesting and important conversations and things like that. You know what I mean? So
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to go ahead and let you get to the next part.
Okay. So then we have Cheyenne Ingalls, right? We all know who she is. She testified in court. During her first interview, she said her car is the dark brown four-door. To her left was a light colored car. She saw a heavy-set old man wearing glasses and that he could barely breathe. He was taking pictures with a camera around his neck. Now that's Dave McCain still. She saw Shelby H. and Duncan. Wait, hold on. I read that wrong. When Cheyenne, I read that wrong. I just confused myself for no good reason. So Cheyenne was with Shelby D. When she and Shelby D got to the south side of the bridge, they both walked down the hill on the right side of the bridge so that they could use the bathroom. When they ran into Shelby H and Ethan, they took a photo on the bridge. That photo is timestamped at 3:49. Okay? That's late, y'all. That is after the state claims that these girls were murdered. 3:49 is late. But these two girls, Cheyenne and Shelby D, go under that bridge and use the bathroom. The mom and me, oh, I felt like this rock in my stomach when I heard that. Had they been 20 minutes earlier, it could have been a whole different story. Cheyenne saw a man sitting in a new car when they got back to the parking lot. He was talking on the phone. There were a girl and a boy with a moped. Um, Everything else she said matches Shelby D. So we're going to read that one next.
Okay. So for anybody who just had that snippet, that is for Cheyenne Ingle, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So the next is for Shelby D. The
Yep.
rest of the narrative of Shelby D and Cheyenne go track. So that's who we're flipping to next. And you guys can add that excerpt into the narrative.
Okay, so Shelby D went to the high bridge with Cheyenne. They were in a deep purple Chrysler 300. They got to the parking area at around 2:50. Both parking spots were already full, and a third car was parked along the roadside. That car was later identified as belonging to Shelby H. So Shelby D said that, okay, so this is all. Shelby D said Shelby H drove a white Chevy Impala with paper plates. Cheyenne also parked along the roadway. The car parked on the right space was an older model, possibly red, but she's not sure. The car on the left was a little newer, lighter colored, but again, not sure. Both cars were four doors and not SUVs. They saw Shelby D and Cheyenne saw an older man with a camera on their walk to the bridge. Again, that's Dave McCain still out there. So then Shelby D gives another interview. And this one's a little more interesting.
Lay it on me. I love it. I love the tea. Give it.
All right. So Shelby D talks about the cars parked at the trailhead, and it matches perfectly with all of the other car accounts. That's all they said in this narrative, is that it matches what everybody else has said about the comings and goings of the car, basically. They arrived at 2:50, which matches her last statement, right? Yep, matches. She remembers because Cheyenne had gotten a call from her boyfriend, who is an inmate named Ian Anthony. Shelby D saw an old man between 65 and 70 with white hair and glasses taking pictures. We know that's McCain. When they got to the bridge, they saw Shelby H and her boyfriend at the first platform. They exchanged a few words and continued across the bridge. Shelby D took a few pictures and Snapchats, and the time on her first photo of the bridge was 3:49. So when they came back across the bridge, Ethan and Shelby D were already gone, or Shelby, that had to be, yeah. Ethan and Shelby, the other Shelby, right? I wrote Shelby, but Ethan and his counterpart were already gone. They hung out on the first platform until 3:53. That's when her last picture was time stamped. When they get to the car, the Impala was gone, but the old man that they saw was still sitting in his car. The original car on the left had left and been replaced by another, and she saw a moped. So that's the end of that one. So now we've got another one, but this guy is there much earlier in the day. We got a UPS driver. His first name is Tenton, Tenton. He's a UPS driver.
Yes.
He delivered to the Hoosier Harvest store at 1 p.m.
Ooh.
The CCTV footage shows his truck at 1:06 p.m. When he drove by the trailhead, he saw a dark SUV or a crossover type vehicle. He can't remember what color or make and model. Now, personally, he's there at 1:06 and he saw this dark colored SUV or crossover.
Yeah.
Just saying, my suspicions tell me that that's the right time.
It leaves for some ponderance, does it not?
Doesn't it?
It does. Let's keep it moving forward. Bell Mayhem wants to know, can we FOIA that jail call? that Cheyenne had received from her incarcerated
Oh, I don't know.
lover.
I
We could
don't
check.
know.
I don't know. Maybe that could be something you could check into, Bill.
Yeah, I
Let's
don't
keep
know.
you right. I don't know either. Um,
It's not something we had
no,
because it wasn't really relevant to our case,
mm-mm,
but
no.
maybe for through his maybe.
Perhaps. I mean, every bit of the information that we are able to garner helps to kind of put everything into perspective at this point. So for a long time, I feel like we've heard what people have been chit-chatting about. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? This is a chance for us to actually
get some meat.
listen through the eyes of Christine and her ears and her experience, maybe her perspectives. This might give you guys some other perspective and some other thoughts. We're just hoping that this will help clear up the questions and it will help generate conversation so
Yeah.
that if people are looking for more answers, more links, or possibilities, that we are able to open up that portal and we can keep building from here because this is important.
So now we go on to a guy, and I'm only going to use his first name. He's an adult. His name is David, but I'm only using his first name because he is not a suspect at all. And his name is not out on the interwebs at all. He's a guy I never heard anybody talk about. So when they first went to talk to him, it was because they thought he could be a witness. This was in July of 2017. Um, or they thought that he could be a suspect. Well, when they got there to talk to this guy, they didn't realize that he had already been interviewed. That happens a lot in these files. I am noticing that when officers arrive, they find out they're following up in leads in Orion. They're finding out that this person's already been talked to, and sometimes they've already been talked to 6 or 7 times. Like, it's crazy that there's this delay in information sharing. They were just working at lightning speed, and sometimes things weren't getting entered into the system quickly enough. And so that's what happened with this guy. So they didn't realize that he'd already been interviewed. So his truck had been seen on CCTV near the bridge. That's why they had him listed as a suspect, just because his truck was there. So he drives a Honda Ridgeline. And when he was in the area, he saw a charcoal gray four-door leaving the cemetery. So this guy is now a witness. He thinks the car may have gone east. He parked at the trailhead across from the Mears at 2:30. He and his dog, so this is the guy with the dog that everybody's said that they've seen. He and his dog walked for approximately a half hour at most. He parked at kind of an angle on the left side, and he was the only vehicle there. He walked from Freedom Bridge, or he walked to Freedom Bridge, not High Bridge. He walked past the couple when he was leaving. He saw an older Honda Accord next to him and a white Impala with paper plates. Now we know who that is. So this guy is interesting just because he was so quiet. He stayed under the radar because he didn't want to be seen, or he didn't want to be bothered. But he got there at 2:30. So if what's happening at Highbridge happened when they said it happened, and he's right there at that fork of the Mears entrance, he would have heard something, man. Like, that's close.
Yeah, that's close. And what I noticed though, because like I've been to the area too, like when somebody makes a sound, like that sound like is very loud. Like, you know what I mean? Like that shit reverberates. So I don't agree. Like, you know what I mean? Hey R&M, welcome in, honey. Glad to see you. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, you're fine. Okay, so then I want to save these neighbors all for last. All right, so then we got a guy, his name's Carl. The only reason they talked to him is because he saw a guy on the bridge at 4:30. He did a lineup during another interview when he was interviewed, and the cop that was interviewing him didn't know that. So there's really nothing to this narrative. It was all of 1, 2, 3, 4 sentences, which is typical. But his interview was gone. So that's all we have. So Kelsey, this narrative is also very, very short. So it sounds like they got this information from her while they were doing something else or there for something else or whatever. She said that she saw a red truck and a white scruffy male with a dog. So that must have been, she must have seen them at the trailhead when she was dropping the girls off. So the guy with the dog, we know who that is.
Yeah.
Okay, so here's another one. Cheyenne E or Cheyenne and Shelby D. Cheyenne saw a couple and an older heavyset male in his 60s. He drove a, or she drove a purple Chrysler 300. And then the other Shelby drove the white Impala with paper plates. It's just a duplicate, which is so common in here. So then there's a guy. I'm just going to call him D because if I say his name, you're all going to know or be able to figure out who this guy is because he's got a weird name. So he was nervous and agitated during his interview. He was in the area, but he has no alibi until 3:20. The guy was aggressive towards law enforcement and made a comment about the girls flaunting their stuff as they crossed the street at 3:20 when he claims he saw them. He says he also saw a man in a red truck that was maybe meeting the girls. Now, we already heard reference to this red truck once, but 3:20 is too late for him to be seeing the girls crossing the street. So I don't know if that guy is telling the truth about what he saw, or if he's got his times confused, or if he saw different girls. Like there's a lot of things that could be up with that guy and his version of what he saw.
See-through wants to ask, Was Rick ever put into a lineup for witnesses to identify?
No.
Okay.
Nope.
Let's keep it pushing forward.
Okay, so then we've got DeVore, right? We've all heard Don DeVore. That's a name that's been floating around forever. So he said he was not on the trails on the 14th, but that he did go in search on the 14th. So during his trip there on the 14th, he stopped off on I-25 by the old bridge abutments where a trail runs through there. He noticed a guy standing next to a car 40 to 50 feet away. He didn't stand out at the time, but now he thinks it could be connected. He said the guy was 5'8" to 5'10", 40, brown hair, overweight, wearing a blue jacket with a hood. And he said the guy was possibly Mexican or Hispanic. DeVore also said that while he was out there on the 14th, he dropped a phone on the trails and it went in the water, destroying his phone. He never mentions, and they never ask, if he retrieved his phone or not, which is why I included this on the stuff I wanted to read you today, because we don't know what happened to that phone. So is his phone one of the found phones that turns up later? I don't know. I don't have any follow through on that phone. Did he pull it out of the water? Maybe. Was it, that water was freaking cold. So did he just kind of say fuck it and leave it be? Maybe. I don't know. I don't know what the story is on that guy's phone.
Also, I wanted to make sure that we duly note that the trail that this guy mentioned seeing this other individual at is no longer in play in the area as well. So when everything was done after the highway stuff was all complete and everything else, this trail entrance is no longer a viable and useful entrance. So I just want to make sure that that's notated as well for anybody that is curious.
Correct. You are correct. So then we come to a young lady by the name of Anna. I'm not going to use her for her last name just because I want to protect her identity. She says she was on the high bridge an hour before the incident. I find that a strange way to write that narrative because we don't know what time the incident was, right? So they surely didn't know what time the incident was back at the beginning of the case. So I am going to assume they mean an hour before the bridge guy video was taken. That's the only thing that makes sense to me. She saw an old man walking that was kind of creepy, wearing blue jeans, a really light blue jacket, gray hair with some brown that did not show his face. So then we've got a true minor. Her first name is Maya. This is something that some of you all that have been paying attention have heard this name before. She got to the High Bridge and met her boyfriend at 4:00 p.m. She didn't see anything odd, just people pacing back and forth and talking on their cell phones. She rode a scooter to the park, and her boyfriend drove a yellow Razor four-wheeler. They left at 4:30. So that mention of the scooter is this girl. So you'll hear about a scooter and a four-wheeler on the 13th. They're talking about those two. She got there at 4. They left at 4:30 because things were obviously not okay there. Like, it didn't take a rocket scientist to figure out that something was happening. People were beginning to gather. They were pacing back and forth. People were on their phones because they realized that Abby and Libby really were missing. So
Belle wants to ask, is there a time or like a day for Anna's statement that was available?
no.
Okay.
No, there probably was. Like, the statements are dated, but I didn't write it down. These are notes that I
Okay.
took a year and a half ago. So at the time, it didn't seem to me like I needed to.
Yeah,
Now,
like it was relevant. Yeah.
exactly. Now, in hindsight, oh, I should have written a date on everything I took notes on. I should have included evidence numbers and dates and all of that, but I just
Yeah.
didn't.
Well, you got to get a good note taker like me,
Right,
Christine.
exactly.
Hey, I got to teach you, honey. I think you're
Exactly.
learning.
So
Aaron
they
is
actually
asking.
spoke to her
Hold on.
twice because I'm finding another one for Anna.
Okay, hold on. So
Yep.
Aaron's asking, was there any of these girls, was there the mention of a name of anybody by the name of Emily or Anna Spath? Oh no. Never mind. No.
So Anna, I read one of hers already. I'm getting ready to read
Sorry.
another one. That's fine.
No, that's what I get. I'm so sorry.
No, that's okay.
Okay.
Emily, I didn't pull anything for Emily today, but I will in the future. I know why you asked. So I think that will come up. We'll discuss that again later. But they're minors, and so I'm trying to be delicate.
Yes, I'm sorry. That was my fault
Okay.
because I had a message come in, and when it came in, as I was asking about Anna, like I read the message out loud and I shouldn't have read it out loud, and I so apologize for that. Please don't crucify me. Thank you.
That's right. Yeah, okay. It's okay. So they must have talked to her again because this time the narrative again is very, very short, and it's the same information. She was at the bridge an hour before the murders. She saw a creepy old man wearing blue jeans, light blue jacket, gray hair, and didn't show his face. So now we got another guy named David. Let me make sure that this isn't the same guy that I just read, because I'm not going to give you his last name, but I want to make sure that I'm not reading the same guy twice. It is the same David. So this same David that I told you about earlier that had been seen on the CCTV near the bridge, he gives a second interview, after that first one. And that first one was in July of 2017. So in this interview, he's come back with some evidence, right? Which is common. A lot of times when people get talked to, especially by the FBI or the
Right.
ISP, they get nervous. And so then they go
Absolutely.
looking for proof of where they were. That's what's happened with
Mm,
this guy. He comes
gotcha.
back with some proof. He's got
All
a
right.
receipt from the post office marked at 210. And then he stopped for a quickie stop at the credit union and then headed to the trail. He drove in from the east, past the cemetery. And as he passed the cemetery, there was a gray or charcoal colored car that was getting ready to leave the cemetery. That to me is huge. That was never mentioned in court ever.
Yeah, that is huge, right?
Yeah,
That is that's something to make you go, whoa.
right. Exactly. So now we've got a witness with really good timestamps saying that he saw a gray or charcoal colored car leaving the cemetery. Um, the car pulled out and headed east. He said the car was newer, but he couldn't identify the make and model. He then pulled into the parking lot area at around 2:20, 2:30. He parked on the left of the trail access, and there were no other people or cars. He and his dog walked across Freedom Bridge and back to the car, same as his last statement. As he got back to the car, he saw a man and a woman near the trailhead. The guy was 5'10", 180 pounds, dark hair, facial hair, white t-shirt. The female, same height, wearing a red shirt and a blue coat. There was a dark four-door Honda Accord parked to the passenger side. A white passenger car parked parallel to the road with a paper plate. Now that gives us the timing, right? Because this paper plate is a big one because it locks all these people in for their timeline. He left the trail and went to the vet clinic, and the vet clinic receipt shows 310. The officer notes that he was informed that Officer Lowy from Fort Wayne, that was assigned to the task force, had interviewed someone from who had been at the cemetery from 2 to 2:30. Now, I have not seen any interviews from someone that was at the cemetery from 2 to 2:30.
That's
So
very interesting.
I
How did
don't
they not interview somebody that wouldn't
I don't
that was
I,
at the cemetery at 2 degree? Did they go
I don't
look for the person? Did
I
they get
yeah,
the, you know what I mean? That's interesting.
it is interesting. So I don't know if that that interview just wasn't included in the copy of Discovery that I had,
Right?
or if it got lost in the confetti shuffling of our files.
Yeah, because remember you were telling us, you guys had to give your files back when the
Right,
defense was thrown off the case, and then you guys all got reinstated back into that case, and you had described to me that your files were all over a mess again. There were some of your files that were missing that you
correct,
guys had put together that did not come back to you.
correct.
Think about that, y'all. Think about that. That is a hot mess in itself, but it does spirit a question. Why did those files not come back to you guys as the investigators?
I have no
Where did
idea.
they go? And why would somebody take those files and not return them back
I have no idea.
fully? Like, you know what I mean? Because, like, I watched hearing after hearing after hearing with the defense struggling to receive items of discovery, all kinds of things. And I don't even want to get started on the craziness Big JD said it. She said they were shanked.
Right?
Shanked. I love you, Big JD.
Yeah. So
Sorry.
I
Gotta keep
don't
moving forward.
know. I don't know. I could have missed it too, but I will I I don't know what happened to that one.
Well, if you find it, I mean, feel free to, if you get a chance, let us, chime in, whatever, if you get a chance. We'll always, we always love to hear what you have to say because you just bring such beautiful enlightenment to all of us. And we couldn't have asked for any other blessing to come our way. And I just greatly appreciate you and your friendship.
I feel like the chaos dies in the light, and so
Doesn't it though?
yeah, it
It
does.
does.
So I
And
feel
when the
like
smoke clears and you see all the damage,
yeah,
boy, boy.
yeah, I feel like this will probably give everybody a little clearer picture on how at least people were moving around.
Well, yeah,
Um,
and it gives people a chance to pick up their rocks and throw it at the glass houses and watch the fucking shards just fall. I can't
right?
wait till the
Exactly.
kiln comes so we can just scoop up all those pieces of
Hmm.
glass, shove them in the kiln, and then they're gonna walk across those hard shards of glass that they so professed that they wanted to walk across. I promise you, it's coming. It'll be a one hitter quitter for your ass too.
Hmm. So next is Miss Betsy. We've all heard about Miss Betsy. We hear the most about Miss Betsy. I didn't pull all of her interviews, but I pulled the important one. She saw a man of medium height, medium weight, brown hair, mid 20s. She said he was 50 feet from her and he gave her the creeps because he was staring right at her. She said that the sketch that she drew or that she helped, what they do is they sit down and she would tell the officer what to draw and then he would draw it and then she would say no, that nose is wrong, and they would work together to create this composite. She said that sketch was a 10 out of 10. She looked through yearbooks and had never seen this guy before, this 20-year-old. And the sketch was completed by a Taylor Bryant, Bryant. So that's what Betsy said she saw. Um, next is a guy. Next is a guy who really didn't see much, but he did say that he saw a small, dark, smart car at the CPS building. So that story of somebody seeing a smart car, yeah, that's true. This guy reported seeing a small, dark, smart car. He's the only person that described seeing this small, dark, smart car.
Interesting.
In October of 2017, they interviewed a guy that was known to like live in the area. I don't know why it took him so long to talk to this guy, but anyway, he witnessed seeing a gray Chrysler 300 parked by the small bridge or parked by the CPS building. Now, I don't know how you can say for sure you saw a Chrysler 300 But you're not sure whether they're parked by the small bridge or the CPS building. Unless maybe he's talking about Freedom Bridge as being the small bridge. Because isn't that parking the same? Wasn't it the same back then?
You're talking about Freedom Bridge, the parking there.
Yeah. So
Well,
maybe that's
you said it was like paved now because I haven't been
it
back
is
there
paved.
since it's paved. When I was there, it was still gravel. You know what I mean? So,
Uh-huh.
I mean, I can't imagine other than the paving that's changed much more, honestly.
Did
But
you still get to the same, like you could go to either was it by the CPS building?
yes, yeah, it wasn't like super far from the CPS building, but yeah, I mean, yes.
So this guy wasn't sure if this car that he's sure about was parked by the small bridge or the CPS building. So then we go to the neighbors. Here's where shit gets interesting. Teresa Liebert.
Judge Jessica was asking, she said to clarify, was it along the roadside?
Um, no, it was in the parking lot.
Okay. And then hold on, somebody else had one more question. I thought Belle was asking what time did RL leave for the aquarium. I told Belle that we would eventually get there, right?
Yeah, we
So
will eventually get there.
okay, just making sure. So I want to make sure I didn't miss any questions. Belle says Google Earth historical pictures from 2012. That area is way different. Trying to find the old Farm Bureau building that Rick referenced.
So that's what's interesting is that in Rick's interview, he called it the old Farm Bureau building. But and there is one. There is an old Farm Bureau building. But I believe that he meant the old CPS building. Yeah, I remember Rick didn't grow up in Delphi. So Teresa Liebert was interviewed on February 22nd. Now they gave several interviews, but this is just one of them. Now she said when she was coming home from errands in the morning that she saw this guy that was walking towards the green gate by their house. But as they approached, he stopped and started walking in the opposite way. He was dressed for cold weather, even though it wasn't cold out. He had a white, scruffy beard, a big hat, maybe a knit cap, and a scarf across his chin. He grinned at Liebert, and she thinks that she saw silver caps on his teeth. He also had high cheekbones. She was off work that day and was napping until 3:30 to 4 o'clock. She was woke up at 3:30 to 4 o'clock by people looking for the girls. She said her husband was home all day, um, but probably outside a lot that day. She claimed that her and her husband were together, like together from 3:30 till about 11 o'clock that night.
Okay, so real quick, Bell Mayhem said, wasn't it the EPA parking lot or parking for the Packers plant? I'm not sure what that means right
I don't
now.
know.
Like, we'll have to look at that, I guess, maybe, and see. I don't know. Like, I'm just not, because like
I don't know.
the Packers plant, when I drove past the Packers plant, like the parking is like way, like the Packers plant is like way down, like it's not, you know what I mean? Like there wouldn't be parking for Packers, like right, like I don't know, like it's there, but it's not, you know what I mean? Like it's hard to describe. I'll have to, whatever. Precedent says it's Department of Forms or something. Bell says USDA or Bell USDA. I don't know if that might
I
help
have
with
no idea.
something. Woman says Nick's dad burned down the old Farm Bureau building. Oh, Jesus. And yeah, Nick did represent Patrick Westfall. Interesting. Yep.
Yeah.
Precedent says Farm Bureau Insurance Building, perhaps.
Yeah, I don't know, guys. I know that his habit was to park by the CPS building. So I don't know.
Lowered Custom.
He didn't testify. So there's that.
Right. Lowered Custom is asking, I'm behind on the chat, but do you know who was fighting under the bridge or around the bridge? I know
No.
that. What?
I don't believe so. I mean, I think I know, but I don't want to guess on a live stream.
Oh, yeah. Got you. Yeah, that is speculative, isn't it?
It is speculative.
Very
I believe
speculative.
I
But,
know,
I think it kind of goes to that girlfriend number 2 thing.
yeah, I mean,
Yeah, like, the honey on the side. I don't know. Y'all know what that is.
I don't want to speculate. I will look.
Yeah.
I will look harder and see if I have in my notes a reference to the arguing couple. I mean, I know. Yeah, I'll see if I can't find actual documentation of the fighting couple.
Catastrophe says, can you not get from the CPS to cross the Freedom Bridge? Like, not the driveway, like the parking lot for the Freedom Bridge is not like, it's not like near the road. Like when you go to that parking lot, right? When you make the turn to like go up the thing, like when you go to that parking lot, like you have to go up like a little hilly type thing to get to that. Like it's not accessible from the, like directly from the roadway. You know what I mean? Like you would have to like kind of like curve around and then walk over to like a little bit past that area, but there's a way to get in there. You know what I mean? I don't remember it being accessible from the roadway, but I could be wrong. Anyway, because we always drove to like the parking lot of that spot, or we went to the cemetery and entered in through the cemetery. Like, you know what I mean? Or the mirrors, like little entrance or whatever. When I went, that's
Entering
the
from the cemetery.
I didn't like ever just park at the CPS building and then get out and kind of like traipse from there to, you know what I mean? But it wasn't like, I didn't see from like the road, like it wasn't accessible. Like, you know what I mean? Like traipse in the area like that. So
entering from the cemetery is by far the easiest way in and out of there.
It is. It's the easiest way. When you figure out this spot where to get through over there, because like there's like you have to go a little bit over, because if you go the other way, like it's like one of those drop down, like, hill type
Yeah.
things or whatever. But
It didn't
when
used to be gated. It's
it
gated now.
I know, and that was a challenge when I
Mhm.
went up there. So I couldn't go through the area that was gated. So I was forced to go back up, like around to, the Freedom Bridge entrance, go walk all that way. And then I went left, right? So, like, you take
Mhm.
that, you get to the bridge and you go to take that trail to go to the left, right? And it, it doesn't look like a trek until you really get back there, because then when you get back there, some of these, like, the wooded inclines of the hills up there, boy, you gotta, like, you you gotta take some time, you know what I mean, to get through there. And when I went, it was in January. It was at the end of January 20 21st or 27th. It's either the 21st or 27th of 2020 was when I did this. And I even went to Ron Logan's house and I knocked on his door. I got brave. I was going to go talk to fucking Ron Logan. I went to that dude's door and he did not answer. I was like, no answer. Bro, I found out like a week later that he had died a week before from COVID, but it was
Oh,
ironic.
yeah.
And, but yeah, so I was able to get back there. I wasn't bothered going back there, but man, by the time it was all said and done, and I remember watching that news footage of Ron Logan, like, talking to that journalist, the dude, and he was like kind of going up that path, because like when you're back there, sometimes you don't really like know which exact way to go, right? And I had a
Mhm.
tablet. I had a tablet, and I was on a live stream, and I was trying to navigate this stuff. And I'll never forget, bro. People in the chat were trying to tell me where to go to. Like, I had never been back there in the woods like that. And I started to traipse up one of them hills, and I fell down the hill on the live stream, and it cut off. Oh, it was terrible, bro. That trip whooped my butt. I was never so glad to have a jacuzzi tub at the end of that trip right there. But, anyways, so I knew we were going the right way when I saw that path to go up. You know what I mean? To go down that incline where the girls were found. And when you go down that incline, at the bottom of that incline, there's barbed wire down there. And somebody might not see it like right away. You know what I mean? So, like, if you're going down there and you're hitting it, if you don't see that barbed wire, it's gonna get you. There were parts in those woods where there were broken trees, tree limbs, and if you stepped the wrong way, like, and you ran into that tree, it would literally that tree limb would literally just go through you. There are parts of that woods back there that are not great to be back through. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
But
Right?
it gave you a very, very good understanding and idea of what it would take for somebody who um, was in the commission of this crime to go back there. It gives you an idea of the trekking, the footing. I know a lot of people are like, why didn't the defense have the jury go back there? And I mean, I guess like they could have taken them, they could have put them on, like, like ATVs or something like that. Like, it would have been crazy if they would have asked that jury to go on foot to you know what I mean, to go back there by what you had to go, you know what I mean?
Mm.
Um, it would have been a bit of a challenge back there, to be honest. So
So,
I don't know why they chose what was chosen, or if they decided that maybe like they were gonna save that for the big shot. You know what I mean?
yeah, um, I don't like the Monday morning quarterback.
Yeah, I don't either. It was just a thought because I'm an outsider. This is my outside
Yeah,
perspective, but then I want to like give people the understanding. Like I have been there. I've been through the terrain. I've been, you know what I mean? Like all of that stuff. So I do understand.
I know why they didn't do it. Like they said, why they didn't do it, and I know, and I understand, but in my personal opinion, like I felt like it would have been worth the risk. But again, I'm not a lawyer, and so if they thought that it was too risky, then that's what they thought. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So
and no, they're the professionals. They understand what this is to go in and out. You know what I mean? And they are the ones who have that experience. I'm not going to tell any of those individuals what to do. I think the work that each of the attorneys that worked on this case provided was
yeah,
phenomenal given the circumstances that, you know, they were given to deal with, along with you and Erica, and even the other investigators. You guys were given a torrential downpour of ridiculousness, and I think
yeah.
that you guys did a hell of a job for what you had to work with, in my opinion.
Well, thank you. I think it was one of those, does it open the door to other things kind of decisions. So, I get it. I understand it. It's a risk worth risk versus benefit kind of
Yep,
decision.
absolutely.
And I get it.
And it's somebody's life that's hanging in the balance. You know what I
Very
mean?
much
Like,
so. Yeah,
and it's
absolutely.
not even just that one person's life, it's a totality of people's lives. There's a lot of people that have been affected by this, you
Yes,
know.
there are.
And uh, the state said no to doing it. So I don't know.
Yeah. I found it surprising that the state refused. I thought they would have been a fan, but they were not. So the neighbors around the bridge were all talked to, like several times, right? Big JD
Uh huh.
is really familiar with some of these folks.
Absolutely. Big JD has helped me to understand quite a big 411 about these folks.
Oh yeah. So they're all
Yeah.
pretty unique, which is, they fascinate me, this neighborhood. So they talked to Teresa. Now she says, oh, I talked to you about the teeth, right? Did I already talk about the guy with the caps on his teeth?
Yeah, the caps, the homeless dude with the caps. You know what? I couldn't help but when you were telling me about that, like when we discussed that, remember, I was like,
Hmm.
in my mind's eye, I seen like the guy grinning at her, and I don't know why, but like I need money flashed across my mind, like on the teeth. Like,
Hmm.
did he have them? But I don't know. It's not funny, but I just kind of like
Well,
find some humor and imagination at time.
knowing what we know now, meth destroys your teeth.
Right. It's
So,
terrible. Drugs are bad, okay?
mhm. So I'm feeling like her seeing a meth head, potential meth head, you know, a guy with a mouth full of silver teeth in the middle of the afternoon, acting funny near a bridge where two girls were murdered. I am thinking that that raises things on the hinky meter. Like that's interesting to me.
I think that should like raise like a red flag, like a you know, file that in
Yeah.
the green for, something to look for. But,
Uh-huh.
I guess maybe that was not something of importance.
So then they talked to Mary Mears, and they talked to the Mears several times. This is just one. So John and Mary Mears, they saw a light blue SUV on the 13th across from their property before they heard that the girls were missing. And they said that the SUV is parked over there regularly. And then that's the end of that little narrative. It was very short. We never hear anything about this SUV. Like that kind of just has never caught traction.
I'm gonna double ask though. Prakasant was asking the guy. She said she has, a very particular person in mind for the person that had the teeth.
Okay.
Um, she said, "What was the rest of his description? Tattoos." And that wasn't like, I don't remember you saying he had tattoos or anything like that. Like it was a very just short, like that's it. Like the only like jumping out thing that she had about that guy was that he was homeless and that he had these silver cheeks.
So
Like,
she said he was dressed for the cold weather, even though it wasn't cold out. He was white. He had a white, scruffy beard, a big hat, maybe knit cap, and a scarf across his chin. When he grinned at her, she thinks she saw silver caps on his teeth. She also noticed high cheekbones. So I can't tell if she meant that he had a white scruffy beard or if he was white and had a scruffy beard. Can't tell.
thank you for reiterating that because I wanted to make sure that I understood properly.
Mhm. Yeah, you can't tell the way that it's written, but that's the description that she gave of this guy.
So,
So then we have another interview with both of them, with both of the Liebers. They had been on vacation, it looks like. They were back from vacation and in Delphi as of February 12th. So the day before the murders. She went, Teresa went tanning, or Teresa and her husband, they went tanning in Delphi at 8:30 in the morning. On their way home, near their mailboxes, they saw a guy. Now she says he had no teeth. He was wearing all black. He turned around when the Lieberts saw him, and she said that they worked on the property but not together. And then at 1:30ish, they went for a drive. She saw a black car backed into the old welfare building. And that was at 1 p.m. ish. So that sounds like another person that saw this black car earlier in the day.
yes, it does.
Interesting. Isn't it interesting? I find it interesting.
I find that interesting as well. Okay, so Bell Mayhem asks effeminate, EFFEMINATE. I'm not sure what
Effeminate.
that means. Huh?
Effeminate.
Okay, what is
That
that?
means a feminine man.
Oh, was it a feminine man?
She didn't mention that. I don't know.
Okay. Practicant. Oh, she's asking woman. Never mind. Sorry.
No, that's okay.
Are those Aaron says, are those the in-laws of the sheriff?
Um, hmm, I believe so. I believe that's how the family tree goes.
I believe so as well, but yeah.
I believe so. They also live on that same private drive as the Webbers.
Oh yes, they sure do. The whole little there's a whole little click clack click clickety clack full of them. By all bunch of little uh last names. Yeah, Big JD know the peeps. They're her peeps. She know what the business is there.
All right. So here's one. They talked to Brad Weber. This is also real short. He admitted to knowing or to owning a P239 40 caliber handgun. He says he didn't see anybody, but he suggested talking to Dave Lieber because he's the eyes and the ears of the area. Weber lives at the end of a gravel road right under the bridge. So, one thing that I have come to know about the Lieberts and Ron Logan, which I find interesting, is,
What?
is that they have this common common belief that their land is somehow sacred,
Yes.
and that eh, not like sacred in a weird witchy holy way or anything like that, but like that their land is like precious to them.
Right.
And one, I forget whether it was Lieber or Logan that said that they desecrated his holy land.
It was Raw Logan. It was Raw Logan. Give me Raw Logan for 500. I swear to God, it was Raw Logan. That his land was
Probably,
desecrated.
probably, but they both had that. It was almost odd. It was almost fanatic attachment to their property and
Yeah.
keeping people off of it.
Right.
I find that interesting.
Very interesting. There was talks that I once had with somebody about a sacred tree, a sacred area um in the
Mm-hmm.
area. You know what I mean?
The
There
name
was
Delphi is sacred.
yeah, it's in Delphi. It's within the region of the property of where Ron Logan's stuff is. And there are said some things that would happen in that area. Now I don't know if that's true, but I mean, you never know.
Mm.
Big JD said K Weber, I know for sure, has statues facing certain directions all throughout her property that
Yes,
has
I believe that's
specifically
the Stations
been
of the Cross.
facing in specific direction. She says,
Correct.
sorry, that was a lot of specifics. No, you're good, Big JD, because
You're good.
that's what I'm talking about. But it's
Yeah.
supposed to be like a
I think it's the
religious.
Stations of the Cross. I think it's
Yes.
Catholic. I think she's Catholic.
Yes. And it's supposed to bless, like it's something like blessing the four corners type thing. You know what I mean? It's yeah.
Hmm. Yeah, I think it's the Stations of the Cross.
Catastrophe said that it's the cure for that. What's the cure for that desecration? How old are the Lieberts? Bell asks. And Catastrophe says historically it is an illness area with a lot of child deaths. So that makes sense. You know what I mean? Given the history, like if you read about like the history of Carroll County and some of the beliefs and some of the specified areas of land around there, and you know, yeah, I would believe that historically.
1949.
1949. Okay.
Yeah. So those 76.
Yeah, some like 40s. Yeah, because they would be 3 years younger than my grandfather. My grandfather was born in 46. So yeah, something like that. Yeah, JD said she's for real specific about it. Yeah, I get it though. And I respect it. You know what I mean? But yeah, I get it.
All right. So now we get to the dark stuff. Do you want to do that tonight?
Does a bear shit in woods?
Hold on. Let me do Shane Haygood first. So
Okay.
Jacob
Yes.
Johns, and this is not the dark part. This is just the. This is
This
just
is
that
like,
I saw something. Yeah.
yeah, this is just a light seasoning, folks.
Yeah. So Jacob Johns and Shane Haygood. These are two guys that I gotta find out the name of this. Oh, it's Pearson's. Pearson's gas. I don't know if any of y'all live in Delphi, but if you do, if you could do anything for this gas company, or if you, I don't know if they sell like, propane, or I don't know what this gas company does. But kudos to this fucking gas company because Shane Haygood and Jacob Johns were supposed to be working the night of the 13th. When the girls went missing, they called the boss and said, "Hey, can we take the night off? There's a little girl that's there, there's two little girls that are missing, and we would like to go and help search for them." Their boss tells them, "Fine, go search. Oh, but stay on the clock. We're going to pay you anyway." He not only let them search the night of the 13th, but he also let them search the morning of the 14th, all paid. So kudos to this gas company. I wish that more employers would do the same when you've got children that are lost and need found with a quickness. Because I have found through my own personal experience of running a search team is that a lot of times it is blue collar folks that do the most work to help to find people that are missing. Like it's not we don't get we don't get the management types showing up to help us go search. No, no. We get the blue collar types. And so kudos to this gas company for letting these guys search on the clock. That's my soapbox moment. Anyway,
Yeah, that employer let these guys, because they really were interested in helping with the search. He let them get paid to do this search, y'all.
yeah,
Like that was like A1, like really, that was really nice of that guy. He didn't have to do that. You know what I
no,
mean? So
no, he
shout out
didn't.
to
First time I've seen it
Pearson.
happen.
Yeah, shout out to Pearson's. We appreciate your you know your contributions and all of that stuff, because that helped to
Hmm.
go into the darker parts.
Hmm. So the next day, on the 14th, Jacob Johns and Shane Haygood, they put Pearson's money to good use. So we'll get to that in the next one. Jacob Johns also, you hear from his, must be his wife at trial. Um, she is a personal assistant to Becky Patty.
Yeah, that was really interesting because
Yeah.
we talked about that, and you guys were not aware of that
No,
connection.
the
And
lawyers may have been, but I was not.
yeah, that's really interesting.
I was surprised. Yeah, I had no idea. Um, okay, so now we're gonna go on to search party stuff, I think.
Whoop whoop. All right, y'all, buckle up, buttercups, because it's about to get really interesting. Um, so
Be kind to me because this is gonna challenge what some of you all knew. But here's
yes.
the ground rules for files like this, right? Not
Hmm.
everybody tells the truth.
That's correct.
So when you hear something and it's different than what you have always believed, you're going to have to sort out for yourself whether it's because what you always believed was bad information or
Hmm.
if it's because somebody's version of the story is fucking bullshit.
That's right.
So,
And if
and
you
you're all
have
going to have to
questions,
work that out for yourselves because people lie.
yeah, and there will be, like, if you have, uh questions for clarification, that's okay too. But please, please, please keep it respectful. I know that we don't normally have that problem in here with all of you fine folks, but even later in the comment section, please keep it respectful. Please keep it classy, and them's the rules. That's how it's gonna roll.
All right. So, the searchers, I'm also only going to use their first names just because this is delicate and then people don't need to be bothered by us, right? They already have gone
Yes.
through enough
Disclaimer.
trauma.
Yeah, disclaimer, please do not go trying to reach out to any of these individuals that are included into this narrative. They have dealt with enough. They do not need to be bothered. But we are doing this so that everybody has true and clear clarification of what information was received.
Mhm. And I didn't pull every, I didn't, there were well over 100 searchers. I didn't pull them all. I just pulled some and I pulled the ones that I thought would be new to you um, and and helpful to explain what happened on that day. So the first one is a woman whose name has never been around. We're going to call her Lady M. So Lady M was a member of the search party that helped find the girls. She was actually one of the people in one of the groups that found the girls. She started searching from the Blue Bridge near the highway. Now that's Freedom Bridge now. She walked the river area and went beyond High Bridge. She met up with her nephew, Derek, and another woman that we'll call B. She met with Derek Derman and B briefly and then continued to search. When she reached the top of the hill near the cemetery, she met up with a guy who lived in the area and believed to be Pat Brown. She walked down the hill and she saw the girls on the ground. She screamed and ran up the hill. She was visibly shaken and does not remember a single detail of what she saw. She did not have a gun with her while searching. Now you're gonna hear that did not have a gun while searching or did have a gun while searching. That is because the officers already know by the time they're talking to these people that there was a bullet found at the scene. So they ask all of the searchers if they were carrying a weapon that day because they're trying to figure out if somebody may have dropped a bullet. So that is typical of these stories that we read about. This woman went through hell after this. She's my heart goes out to all of them because this could not have been easy. This is someone who knew those girls, by the way. So the next guy is a name you all know. It's Ello. So Ello is dating one of Abby's aunts. They went to the trail at around 9 p.m.
Can I insert that this sister is also related to one of the officers of Carroll County as well?
Correct. Correct. So they went to Delphi at about 9 and they searched until about 2:30 a.m. They went with ATVs the next morning to go and help search. And Ello found the trail camera with the SD card. So I guess that answers the question about was there a trail camera and who found it.
Thank you for that.
Yep, no problem. So they talked to another guy. I have this written on the same piece of paper. This is not a witness. This is not a guy that was out there that day. This is just a random guy that called in to the tip line. And he mentioned that there's a cabin in the woods near the bridge where the kids go and party. We're still looking for this cabin in the woods where the kids go and party. We've found a couple, but none of them are actually right there where the High Bridge area is at. We found some that are further down, across the street and whatever. But if y'all know of one that's like in
There are
that
cabins at Riley Park.
what?
There are cabins at Riley Park.
Yeah,
There's a
not at
cabin
Riley
at Riley Park. There's some cabins there's another area over there that have cabins.
I mean very close to the bridge.
Yeah. You know, I don't want to misspeak, but my mind remembers back in the day there was some rumor talk about somebody that would be associated with the bad guy crew, Kurt's family owning cabin property in close proximity.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. It's just a suggestion, speculative
I know
suggestion.
where that is.
Yeah.
I know that one.
Canal Park. Woman says Canal Park. There's another. There's a cabin of interest over there as well.
Closer than that, guys.
Okay. Not the one on the shoreline visible to Ari's property. JD said something. The river, there is something, some kind of shelter.
That's the stuff.
He said there's a shelter.
That's what I'm looking for.
And yeah, the one that's not visible, not on the shoreline, visible to RL's property. And Jessica says that's what she was thinking about.
Yep. Right there. Like I'm talking right close to the bridge. Exactly like that. JD, if you could maybe email me a map or get my number from Gritty or something.
Yes. Oh, JD, I was going to ask you.
Oh, I think you have my email. Just email me. Email me that or something. I'll send you my phone number.
I do have a request. Kind of weird, maybe. But if there's anybody from like the Delphi area, there were maps that were given out when searchers would go and they would report to the fire station or the command center. These were maps that were given out to the searchers that sectioned off the area into 9 areas while searching for the girls. If anybody has a copy of that map or maybe something like that, would you guys be willing to share it? That would be greatly appreciated because I would be very much interested in seeing something that maybe the searchers had received, sectioning off their area so that we can understand how the search grid thing worked better. Just saying.
Yeah. So next is David Erskine, another name that everybody knows because he has talked some publicly, right? We've all seen his text messages. I didn't lose you, did I, Gritty? I moved my phone.
No, I'm here, hon. I just have it on mute because my sound is much larger than yours, woman says, and so they have a hard time hearing you if I don't mute.
Oh, I'm sorry. I moved you closer. Is this any better?
I think you sound good, but I just want to make sure that they can hear you or whatever. So I just mute mine because the doggies like to jump around and play and do all kinds of stuff. So I just mute it so that you can be heard better.
Okay. So next we've got David Erskine, right? He has leaked his own text messages and talked a lot. So he stated he told the cops that he himself looks like Bridge Guy. And he said that he was alone when he found the bodies, which doesn't match some of the other narratives. The tip also mentions that he got into an argument with the Delphi fire chief the night that the girls went missing. Oh, he did not call this tip in himself. This is someone else calling about him.
Okay, woman says your sound is absolutely better. So we're good.
So they say that he was at work with his boss until 2 p.m. and then home until his sister called him at 5 and told him that Abby was missing. So he then went to the sheriff's department to meet with his sister and help search. Then he called the fire chief to ask for help. And he searched for the girls from 5 o'clock p.m. to 5:30 a.m. So David Erskine was out there all night long looking for these girls. His roommates helped. So he then slept until about 10 and went back out to help search.
Also, to tell you guys the roommates were the two gentlemen that were working for the gas company that we have already previously discussed. So please add that
Oh,
to
they
your
were
web.
not. No,
No,
his roommates were not those
not the
guys.
same. Are you sure? Because
Uh-huh.
my bad.
One
I'm
was
pretty
Sean
sure.
and one was Michael.
Oh, never mind. I
That's okay.
guess maybe I thought it was the same because the one dude's name started with S. Sorry, I
That's
wasn't
okay.
looking at my notes.
That's okay. So he then slept at home until he went back till 10 a.m. They were given a map by command. And so while he was searching, he saw bright clothes across the river. He crossed the bridge and started towards the clothes while calling the command center. Deputy Yoder arrived along with his sister's fiance, Ello, and two people he doesn't know. Erskine didn't see the bodies until Ello pointed them out. So there's that one.
Okay, sorry, I misspoke before that because I found the page after that. So yeah, you got me. You're right. I was wrong.
That's okay.
So what? No, Aaron, not Brevard.
No.
Okay, so we got through. So we got through the two people he didn't know, didn't see, and the alibi was confirmed and cleared, right?
Yep.
Okay. So are we going to Pat Brown next?
Yep, we are.
Yes. Okay, sorry.
So Pat Brown's interview was recorded at the time. So all we have now is a narrative. He searched for the girls on the 13th and the 14th. He's the one that knocked on Logan's door and told him that there were search parties in case he saw lights or he heard them searching. He did not know Ron Logan, but Ron Logan just said, okay, when he told them that the kids were missing. He was going to the command center when Shane Haygood called to say he found something by the cemetery. Shane Haygood, you remember, he's one of the kids from the gas company. Pat saw Mike, Patty's wife's cousin, run up the hill screaming. He then got Officer Mullins and stood near the creek until the firemen arrived. Pat later talked to the Mears about seeing the girls. And Pat said that he later saw Logan at the trailhead and said Logan was with other people. This is Ron Logan. The next day, after the interview, Pat called the officers back and was upset. He asked to take a polygraph and said that the other officers had not been kind to him and that he couldn't sleep or eat. Pat reiterated that he had not given any details to Logan. So this is normal. Pat Brown's reaction to being questioned, that's normal. Like, people get questioned and then they go home and they get so worried and nervous because cops just interrogated them when all they're doing is out helping to find little girls. Then the girls get found, and then cops want to talk rough to you, asking you if you've done it, right? So him calling back and saying, just give me a polygraph. I can't eat, I can't sleep. on top of the trauma of seeing those girls, like all of that, his reaction really is normal. We see this a lot in homicide,
Yeah.
a lot. So he also mentions that he didn't give any details to Ron Logan. Well, because we're going to find out that Ron Logan knew things that he really shouldn't. And they were trying to figure out how Ron Logan knew those things. So next is Shane Haygood, the kid from the gas company. So Shane says that he was searching on the south side of the creek with his coworker. Well, that was John. When they found a shirt on the north side of the creek at around noon. An unknown fireman came to babysit the shirt. Shane left the area at around 1:30, and the shirt still hadn't been collected yet. Shane said he was carrying a 380 while he was searching. Next is from Pat Brown. Pat Brown got a call from Tom Mears across the street, who said that Shane Haygood thought that he could see something from the other side of the creek. Brown didn't know Haygood, so Brown texted him the number. Haygood guided Brown to the bodies. Brown approached from the feet and got 3 to 5 feet from the girls. Brown did not carry a gun that day, but does own 2 9mm Sig Sauers. So I think by now you guys are all starting to figure out that all of the people saying, I found the girls, yeah, they're all telling the truth. Because there was more than one group of people that just they kind of collided at the same time into each other. So there's been that whole debate and argument about who found them first. Well, they kind of all did. So it's got a really innocent explanation as to how that happened.
Yes. Bell Mayhem has two questions. So the first question, or not question, but I guess it's a comment. RL also let it slip on an undercover audio. Pat Brown saw me down the hill.
Pat Brown saw me down the hill?
Yep. That's what or Bell Mayhem. I'm sorry, I don't know if it's guy or gal, but says RL let it slip on an undercover audio. Pat Brown saw me down the hill. Pat emailed you a video that will be useful. And Bell Mayhem also said, how did RL take the news crew right to the spot of the girls day after?
Man, that place was lit up like the break of day. There were the day after the bodies were found. Well, the day that the bodies were found, the officers were out there working well into the dark. I mean, well into the dark. And it was lit up like a football field. Like, because they were taking photos, like the girls were even still out there after dark. So because of the way that they process crime scenes, it just takes a long time, and removing the victims is the last thing that they do.
Yeah.
So
Bell Mayhem said, I will send you the video. Thank you so much, Bell. Thank you, Catastrophe. You guys are angels. Thank you. Thank you. Good morning, Rebecca Ann. So yeah, so that's like crazy, right? I mean,
I wonder what the bigger context is. I'm interested. That's going to be That'll be interesting to see.
Yes. Okay, so we're at the point where we know now that Ron Logan knew things that Ron should not have known, right?
Yeah.
All right. So
So next is another LO. So we get to hear from him again. So he was he was with the search party that found the girls. They searched the night of the night of the 13th until 1:30 in the morning. And on the 14th, they took ATVs to the fire department, and then they were sent to the command post and sent to Area 9 on the map. I have no idea where Area 9 is because we don't have the search maps.
and that's why I had requested if anybody does have a copy of the search map and they are willing to give us a copy of it or a glimpse of it, we would greatly appreciate that.
So they searched for Mears Farm down the trail from the head to the bridge. He was asked to take Ben Mears to where the trail cam was located. So his fiance texted him that her party had located some clothes. So Ello's fiance was with the group that found the clothes. So he then saw a family member, Miss M, or Lady M, come up the hill screaming about finding the girls. They walked down the hill to the creek, and he saw the girls in the distance. Deputy Yoder and another deputy arrived to see the clothes, but they didn't know about the bodies. So the party then showed Yoder where the bodies were, and Ello only saw white skin that he believed was Abby. One of the people that Ella was with was a relative, and that relative was carrying a 9mm, but Ella was not carrying a weapon that day.
Okay.
So make sure that I get through all the ones that I had pulled, and it looks like we may be close to the end.
Okay.
So then there's a kid named Bryden.
Yes.
So I had not planned on talking about him today, but I might as well. If I'm getting myself in this hot of water, I might as well, right?
Uh-oh.
So
I don't want to get you in hot water.
no, I'm not. I'm not.
Okay. Okay.
I'm good. That was
Okay.
sarcasm. But
Gotcha.
okay, so there was this kid named Bryden. Bryden was familiar to both Abby and Libby, right? He was friends to both of them. Bryden had a friend named Josh. Now, Josh, Josh is an interesting kid with an interesting family. Bryden had plans to meet with Abby and Libby at the bridge that day. They had been communicating by text messages, according to Bryden. And then Bryden canceled on Abby and said that he wasn't going to make it to the bridge because he wanted to stay and play basketball with Josh. So that story's been floating around for a while. I've heard the story with wrong names, or I've heard the right names with the wrong story. And so I wanted to kind of clarify the right story with the right names.
Right.
So yeah. So there's that. That's one of the people that the girls had plans with to meet with that day.
Yes.
Yep. And that's what I've got pulled out. That's all I had. That's all that I had pulled out for today.
Okay.
I think in the future we'll talk about the groups of girls. This 3-girl versus 4-girl versus
Right.
maybe even more girls than that. But I don't think today's going to be the day for that.
Okay. So when we want to do that next, we'll come back and we'll do a dynamic duo. Because I think we got a pretty good fair amount of information today to just kind of like get us started.
Yeah.
Do you want to do more tomorrow?
Yeah, we can. It's up to you.
We can.
Whatever,
Yeah,
whatever
definitely.
you're looking available for, I'm fine.
Listen, I'm available and down to ride whenever. Okay. I think like we've done a good deal of chunking into the narrative. And I just want to keep like picking at this more so that we all have a clear and concise understanding of who our players are, what's going on. And then once we understand all of the players and all of the witnesses and things happening, then we can start moving forward to pick some more things out. You know what I mean? Is what I feel like. Because I just want to make sure that everybody has a clear and concise understanding of what has happened, not the speculation station, not all of that. We want facts, 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 facts.
Yeah.
Period.
I kind of think, it's hard. It's hard to give folks facts when it's like we're fighting with one hand tied behind our back sometimes because we're limited in what we can and can't share or say. But
Right. Well,
this was a pretty safe,
I mean, for what can be shared and what can be talked about, I think that this has been a very productive session of information. Take what you will. And some people are still going to believe what they want to believe. It doesn't matter. You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink. So, I just really feel like this is a good point where everybody can stop, digest what we've heard here, get their things in line. We'll come back tomorrow. We'll deep dive some more. What you can share, you can share. What you can't share, you know. We just got to do what we got to do to get what we can out there. So,
so I think this will help. I think it will at least give everybody a better understanding of how we can be so sure that things did or didn't happen, or that people were where they said they were, and when, like, I think that most of these people were completely unrelated to each other. So the way that they use each person to lock in the arrival times and whatnot of another person, it helps to understand that. And then because we're a cell phone dominated society, then they use digitals to also reinforce all of these things.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so it kind of was like a double check. I
Yes.
I have heard the argument though. Prof made an interesting argument, and he said that you could also use your digitals to reverse engineer where you were at. Like just because
Yeah.
if you sent a text at 2:30 from the first platform, well, if you knew you sent his text at 2:30, that doesn't really prove that you were on the platform. It just means that you sent a text at 2:30 from somewhere near there. You know what I mean? So
Yes. Yes. I get it. I totally do. But
so
isn't,
there's still some blur, I guess, that would be possible.
but remember when we, okay, so like, but wouldn't GPS location and stuff like help? Like, couldn't they pinpoint the area from, you know what I
Right.
mean, where that was at? Also,
Good.
I don't know if it would apply, but like, remember we talked about that technology, that really kind of like unique technology that Apple has, right? About the
Yeah.
time stamping of when you're
Betsy
sending out.
Fair.
So for
Betsy
people
Fair had
who,
a fit. What was it called? A Fitbit.
yes, but you pointed something out to me that I did not know specifically about the Apple technology until you pointed it out to me. So what you had told me, because you're an Apple user, I'm totally not. Okay,
I'm a Droid user. I just
I'm
I just
I'm
have learned a lot.
yeah, I'm a Samsung user. So you had said to me that when an Apple user sends out the text message, it timestamps the time that you sent out that message, but then it has like a secondary backup, and it gives you like when like a receipt, you know what I mean? Like it was
Yeah.
really unique the way that you had described to me the way that it worked. So I just found it to be really interesting. I
Yeah.
don't know. I know it might not be like relevant, but yeah. Um Hi Mudbug, welcome in. Sorry you're late. We're gonna be wrapping it up soon. But thank you so much for coming in. Please make sure you catch the replay. And Pat said at the end of the day, if we don't get anywhere, we still don't railroad a guy like they did Rick Allen.
Amen.
Very well said.
Absolutely.
Um, Judge Jessica said, I appreciate the bigger picture of all of the people at the bridge that day. We heard that there were tons, so it's nice to hear personal accounts, etc. Thank you
Yeah.
so much for listening, Judge Jessica. Um, Michelle, thank you for coming and listening. Aaron says, but few cell phones prove who is holding it. That's true. It's very
That is very
true.
true.
But we just got to kind of, take what we can and do our best to decipher. Kat said this was brilliant, Christine and Gritty. Thank you. Thank you guys so
No
much for coming and supporting, for listening. Please don't forget to like, share, subscribe. Thank you so much, Christine, again, for gracing us with your ever listening presence, coming to bring us all of your knowledge, um, your wealth of knowledge that you're able to share with us. Like even if it may not seem like a lot to other people, but this has been such a rewarding experience, and I hope we just keep doing this moving forward. So thank you so much.
no problem. Thank you. I,
All
I
right.
I like being able to share because this was all so much hard work that it's nice to be able to put it to some use again.
Yes. And I love that you're able to help, put some stuff in it. Yeah, Mudbug, I know you'll rewatch later on Monday. You have some fun doing your thing, and we will definitely chit chat on Monday. Promise. So,
Oh, sounds like she's going somewhere fun.
a wedding.
Take me with you. Are you going out of town? I want to go.
I don't know. I don't know where Mudbug's going. Hopefully somewhere beautiful, but we definitely wish the beautiful bride and groom the best, all the best. So, yeah, that's what I'll say.
All right. Thank you.
All right, guys. So, love you. Good night. Thanks for coming. We love you like that kid loves cake. So,
right. Love you.
have a good
Bye.
bye.